And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience, and I've continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. But enough of me. I'm here for you. On today's episode of the FB Show, we're going to continue our Week 1 game recaps, breaking down every single Week 1 game, all through the lens of fantasy football. So if you are excited about today's video of the Los Angeles Chargers versus Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow's first career NFL start, be sure to hit that like button down below, like an open receiver downfield Patrick Mahomes style, and also smash that subscribe button, power running back style like Derrick Henry up the middle, if you would like to stick around and get more fantasy football content into your system. Also, you can follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture, and there will be a playlist linked above right now of all my Week 1 game recaps. But if you guys are new around here, you guys know, actually if you guys are new around here, you guys don't know how we do highlights, and if you are, well, let's just jump right in, shall we? Alright, Chargers at Bengals. Like I said, Joe Burrow's first start in the NFL. What would the rookie do? Early first quarter, we're going to see this a lot. A little, just quick slant. AJ Green, welcome back after missing all of last season. 11-yard gain here. Then, later on in the first quarter, 2 minutes left. Joe Burrow designed QB draw, and he's going to find his way all the way into the end zone for a 22-yard touchdown run. Joe Burrow, I said it when I was talking about it, sneaky, athletic. He has some rushing upside. In the second quarter, Mike Williams, coming off of that shoulder injury, he decided to give it a go, and he's going to make an incredible 37-yard catch. Then later on in that second quarter, again, just a little bit later, Hunter Henry, a nice 33-yard chunk play. Hunter Henry was really great for fantasy purposes this week. But then in the fourth quarter, we're going to skip all the way ahead. Josh Kelly, welcome to the league, rookie. His first career NFL touchdown, a 6-yard run. And the Chargers are going to beat the Bengals 16-13. So, not a whole lot to talk about in terms of fantasy for this game. There were some storylines here, and there were some things that I wanted to make note of. But all in all, this game really did not have a whole lot of fantasy relevance, all things considered. Let's start off with the Chargers and Tyrod Taylor. Woo! Tyrod did not look great. He did not. 30 attempts, 16 completions, so just a shade over 50%. 200 yards, and the big thing here is 6 carries for 7 yards, right? Tyrod Taylor's fantasy value was going to come from his rushing ability, and we did not see that yesterday, unfortunately. And because of that, it did limit what he could do. And like I said, just when you're throwing, when you're completing 50% of your passes, the odds are you're not going to have a great fantasy day, all things considered. So Taylor only finished with about 10 fantasy points, and even then, it was not great at all. Going over to the running game now here with the Chargers, the big story here was what is this backfield going to look like between Justin Jackson, Austin Ekeler, and Josh Kelly, the rookie out of UCLA? Well, we can eliminate one from that. Justin Jackson left this game early with a quad injury, and it became the Josh Kelly show. And what I mean by that is Josh Kelly had 12 carries for 60 yards and that touchdown. He proved to be very, very valuable for fantasy, it looks like, going forward, especially if Justin Jackson misses time with that injury. But, we're going to pump the brakes just a little bit because Austin Ekeler did not see the receiving game that he was accustomed to. He only saw one target, which he caught for 3 yards. But Austin Ekeler had 19 carries as well for 84 yards. So just to reiterate that one more time, a little bit cleaner, Austin Ekeler had 19 carries, and then Josh Kelly had 12. So this was the Austin Ekeler, Austin Ekeler is going to be the featured back. This is not a true time split, but Josh Kelly is going to see some work. And Josh Kelly saw some goal line work. I think Austin Ekeler had a carry or two inside the 5 as well. But seeing Josh Kelly get that goal line work was a bit disheartening as somebody who does have Austin Ekeler. And obviously, if Ekeler doesn't have that receiving upside, it could be a bit of tough sledding moving forward. Austin Ekeler just owning him right now. I'm not fully tilting, not quite yet after just week 1, because Anthony Lynn did come out and say after the game that Austin Ekeler is still going to be the guy. He even said it before the game as well. So I'm not fully tilting on Ekeler, but I am going to pump the brakes just a little bit. We'll see how this shakes out over the course of the next few weeks, and then we'll have to make our decision from there. I actually think that next week is going to be is going to be the week where you have to make that decision if you're in or out on Ekeler. But still getting 19 carries, like that's still very, very good. I'm a guy, and I've talked about this before, where opportunity matters. I like guaranteed production. And if Austin Ekeler is going to touch the ball 19, 20 times a game, I'm sure more often than not he will finish very, very well for you for fantasy football purposes. It just didn't happen this week for Cincinnati. As far as pass catchers go, Mike Williams actually played really well, and I was saying don't play Mike Williams because he was coming off of that shoulder injury, and we weren't sure how much he was going to play or what he would actually look like when it came to him being on the field. And he saw 9 targets, hauled in 4 of them for 69 yards, #nice, and we did see that 37-yard catch that he made. It was a really nice play by him. Keenan Allen had 8 targets, 4 receptions for 37 yards. This really was this is the big story here. I want to touch on Hunter Henry real quick as well, who saw 8 targets, 5 receptions for 73 yards. The thing here is this team has weapons, right? But with Tyrod Taylor being such a limited quarterback, all things considered, the most passing touchdowns he's ever thrown for in his career, I think, is like 21. With Tyrod Taylor being such a limited quarterback, I don't know how comfortable you're going to be starting these Chargers weapons week in and week out if you're trying to score touchdowns, right? Because we know touchdowns are obviously the biggest boost for fantasy days. So if you're only getting these games where they average 60 yards and maybe 4 or 5 catches, is that enough? Is that enough? Because at that point, then you're only getting 8 points from them almost every single week, and that's not great. Like, you can't win fantasy weeks with that in your lineup week in and week out unless you have other guys going off left, right, and center on your roster. So the one player who I'm actually really excited about going forward is Hunter Henry. I said this during my Chargers preview. I said he's going to be a guy that you want to start, and he's going to be a great start for you. And hauling in those 5 targets for 73 yards, those 5 catches for 73 yards, and seeing 8 targets, that made me really happy. He finished the day with a shade under 10 fantasy points for you. So nothing world-burning by any means, but still just seeing that production from the tight end position is very helpful because we know that if you don't have one of those top guys like George Kittle, like Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce, you're going to need to find a way to put points on the board, and 75 yards almost on any given week or week in and week out, trying to find that consistency is going to be one way to do it. Moving over to the Bengals, Joe Burrow in his first NFL game, I thought he played fine. I don't think it wasn't great by any means, but I thought he looked pretty good. 23 completions on 36 attempts, 193 yards. He did have an interception, and then he had 8 carries for 46 yards and that rushing touchdown that we saw. Joe Burrow is going to be a guy who can get into the end zone. He has that very similar build to Josh Allen and that same kind of athletic profile, but I just think that Burrow's just a better quarterback. And so if we know what Josh Allen can be for fantasy purposes, what can Joe Burrow be? And that has me really excited going forward. This Chargers defense really was a tough matchup to start your your NFL career with week 1. Like, that really is difficult. So while Burrow didn't do anything impressive by any means, he actually did lead them down the field for a game-winning drive. And then Randy Bullock, as he was kicking the game-winning field goal, looks like he pulled a calf muscle or something of the like, and which resulted in a miss and the Bengals losing. Unfortunately, the kick would have sent the game into overtime. So Burrow, I thought, looked pretty good, especially down the stretch once he got more comfortable, in NFL game speed. As far as the running backs go for the Bengals here, Joe Mixon didn't have a great game, and this really is I don't know if we need to be concerned about Joe Mixon just yet, but it seems like that Joe Mixon's just a player who starts off the season really, really slowly, but then as the year progresses, he gets better and better. We saw that happen last year as well. Joe Mixon had 19 carries, 69 yards, caught 1 pass for 2 yards, and he fumbled, and that fumble really is what killed you. So he actually finished the day with just 4 points, and that's really disappointing because Mixon was a guy that you drafted highly. This offense was expected to be able to move the ball, and like I said, the Chargers, it was a tough matchup, all things considered, but only getting 4 points from Joe Mixon, your first or second round draft pick, depending on where you drafted him, that's a tough pill to swallow week 1, and so you might be able to buy Joe Mixon really low. Maybe the Joe Mixon owner is tilting, and maybe there's a chance that you can get him on the cheap, because if you guys remember, this is not the first year that Joe Mixon has done this. Again, this happened last year as well. But going over to the wide receiving core for the Bengals, AJ Green, welcome back. Oh my goodness, The NFL is so much better with AJ Green on the field. He's one of my favorite players. I love the way that he plays. He's just a really fun wide receiver to watch. He had 9 targets, 5 receptions for 51 yards. Again, we saw that quick opening slant route for him. We're going to see a lot of Joe Burrow, AJ Green, and then there was also a play that would have won the game. That would have won the game for the Bengals. Excuse me. AJ Green caught an incredible touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone, 2 feet inbounds as he's falling out of bounds. But unfortunately, he was called for pass interference. He did push off and extended that arm. But then also Tyler Boyd here. 5 targets, 4 receptions for 33 yards. Boyd killed you. John Ross did nothing spectacular either. And then the other player that I want to bring up here is really CJ Uzomah. I talked about Uzomah this offseason, and it was one of those things where in really deep tight end leagues, maybe you play in a league where you start 2 tight ends, or maybe I just considered Uzomah a potential breakout that nobody was talking about just because of how often this team runs 4 wide receiver sets. But CJ Uzomah saw 5 targets for 4 catches and 45 yards. He was actually the second highest scoring Bengals receiving option this week at 6.5 fantasy points. And while obviously I don't expect that to continue going forward, once again, he's just a player to watch because if he starts to emerge, he could be very, very good given how this offense is going to transition and move throughout the course of this season. This is an offense that I am really excited on. I was talking about this all offseason long. I wanted a lot of Bengals players. I was targeting AJ Green in drafts. I wanted Joe Mixon. Joe Burrow was a late round quarterback that I was considering. I mentioned just CJ Uzomah. T. Higgins, while T. Higgins didn't haul in any targets or receptions, T. Higgins is a guy that I love going forward as a future prospect. So I love the outlook of the Bengals, not only this season, but and beyond as well. I think that's going to do it, though, for my Los Angeles Chargers versus Cincinnati Bengals game recap. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. My goal is to hit 60 subscribers by the end of these Week 1 recaps, so if you want to help me hit that goal, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can also follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. The interactions I've been having over there have been extremely fun, whether it's start-sit questions, waiver wire pickups, or trade offers. I love being able to interact with all of you over there. That's going to do it for this game recap. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever. I will see you in the next video.